Okay, I'm recording. Sorry, I started recording on a cloud, which is something that I'll never find for sure. How you doing?
But good. Was it a white cloud or a grey cloud?
That's the big question, huh?
Was it cumulus nimbus or stratus?
Sorry, I was a bit late. I've got this a dry eye.
That's okay.
Finasteride gets me. Do you use finasteride, by the way?
No, I was very basic when it comes to drugs.
No, hair. It's for hair.
Oh, well, see, I don't even know. See, no.
That's proof for you guys.
This is all still real.
No, I don't use it for my hair. I use it for my prostate, just so it doesn't get too large as I get older.
For my prostate, I just put my whole finger in and give it a little tickle.
Oh, I'm not into that so much. Okay, listen. So
hold on, I want to look professional. Hold on, let's bring the mic in.
You know, I've told my wife before. I've told her, why don't I have a gold mic like Lee? This doesn't.
I could send you this one. Look, it's not plugged in. It's just for show.
I need one of those then. I'll keep.
Looks good.
All right, so to get to business, because today's a business-like episode. So today is the first Live Long podcast with Lee Priest as our guest, and it has been 8 months in the making. People don't actually know the whole story behind it. Lee Priest and I have been trying to do this for a very long time. I had Lee on 3 or 4 times, but we had guests with us, so we were never alone. So I'm really delighted to have you with me, Lee.
Thank you. It's good to be here. And
it really is an honor, Lee, and I mean it because I mean this honestly. You were sort of an inspiration of mine as I was younger and growing up in the early 90s, being just a bit younger than you. And it's a sort of a dream come true to speak to you, really. So I'm very honored to have you here. And more than that, I'm honored to consider you somewhat of a friend. We text back and forth. You send me funny messages all the time. And the great thing about that is I'm very protective over my friends. And recently I found something shocking happen to you, which is
what's happened? What have I done now? What's happened now?
Well, you didn't do anything, in my opinion. Well, maybe you did something that some sensitive people may find frustrating. But let me give the audience a breakdown. And before we do, just so everyone knows how this is going to go, what we'll do in this session, we won't do like a long interview of Lee, but hopefully one day he'll come back on so we can get. I know he has a biopic and he has a biography, but I ask unusual questions. So I bet I could do an interesting interview.
Oh, yes.
But for now,
interviews can't go too long because I've been watching all these podcasts and people say, are you picking on Fuad's podcast? Well, no, I'm not picking on that one. Or there's another one. There's actually 3 podcasts that I sometimes watch now. And during that podcast, they all fucking eat. It's like, so that's the latest thing. So I don't want to go catabolic. So you just carry on.
That's true. They started eating really seriously in the middle of the podcast. By the way, before we get into anything else, can I comment on something else? Have you noticed that the person who's eating the most has recently been very bizarre on camera? Like he's not smiling. He's like making weird faces. He's uncomfortable. The Tremboloni sandwiches have gotten too high for him. But let's get back to topic. So
I'm just following Patrick's diet. So pay no attention to me. You just carry on.
Well, I'm not following Patrick's diet, as you can see. So let's get to the subject. So we're going to have a Q&A. We're going to have a Q&A, a few questions. We're going to start with the first one, which isn't a question. It's by Kevin Blewett. He says, Leo and Lee. Now, that's what I'm talking about. Just when Sean Ray thinks he's clever, longevity will hit him hard. And that's exactly what's about to happen to you, Sean Ray. So this video should be called The End of Sean Ray, because this guy has gone too far, really. All of us as fans, I'm speaking as a fan because I have nothing to do with bodybuilding. I'm just a fan of bodybuilding. And I speak, I think, for the majority of the fans when I say we're all really sick of this guy. So let's begin with, I want to give a summary for the audience for you to know why I'm so.
And we all have to say too, people go, how long's this been going on with Sean Ray? He's been attacking me for years.
No, I know. I'm decades, not years.
And the thing was, I never attack anyone first. When someone attacks me, I let it go. But then after a while, I'm like, you know what, enough's enough.
They know. Okay, so for the people that don't know, basically what happened.
I'll go back to eating.
Yeah, in a short summary. No, I just want to summarize it for them. Short summary. Basically, what happened is, you know how Lee Priest always plays parts, plays different roles. He could come. I asked him to come on this show wearing a turban because I'm Arab. I said, wear a turban just to show. This is not, you play roles, he plays jokes on TV, and he makes us all laugh. He happens to have a conflict with Sean Ray going on for 2 decades. Sean Ray has been doing back and forth, whatever. He happens to be a black mask. And they call this blackface and racism. And this is exactly what happened. Let me get into it specifically, because Lee, I want the audience to know. Sean Ray made a post.
I got to get all of this. Patrick said I got to eat it all.
Sean Ray made a post. He said, and I'm going to quote because it's so ridiculous, guys. I want you to listen. So he says, it's about Lee. He says, so this is how low some trashy news media outlets go in order to get headlines. He's talking about Generation Iron. True. He says headlines, likes, and follows these days. For no reason, he's capitalized these 3 words. I don't know why. Then he says randomly, then he says, you take a racist, again capitalized for no reason, washed up bodybuilder, put him on a show that promotes ignorance and misinformation, capitalized again. Sean, you need to go to school. Ignorance and misinformation with hosts that are thirsty for attention, and then a bottom-feeding fitness media outlet sensationalized. He's talking about Generation I again, a headline so people will visit their crappy IG page. Unbelievable. Now he says, if our fitness community accepts this kind of trash, trust, and belief, there will be more, and believe me, there will be more coming for more ignorant, it's not even make sense because he can't type, but ignorant, racist failures to be sure. He always combines this ignorant, racist, failure, washed out, deadbeat. He combined the insult with the racist. When will it end? Then he says, hashtag stop racism, deplorable, trashy, classless, tasteless, racist, low-life ignorance. Now, then Kai Green comments. He says, wow, what the fuck? He doesn't say anything, though, Kai. He stays silent. But then Sean replies back to Kai. He's excited. He says, yeah, wants to get him on board. He says, they start here, and then they end up dropping the N-word and disrespecting your family next. I don't know whose family got involved in this originally. Call them out when they show you, and I just ended it there. Then Phil Heath jumps in, the second most disliked person in the history of bodybuilding after Sean Ray. He says what's wild is that he seeks so much attention that he would actually plan this on Black History Month. Let that sink in a bit. Let that sink in, just like Jason Blah says, let that sink in. And he said he's literally sick. Then Bob Chick says, well, I'm shocked. Bob Chick, oh my God, Bob Chick, we can get started. But also, it's interesting how these people have come. The worst people in the whole bodybuilding industry all came together. Then Phil Heath responds to Bob, honestly, bro, a little, especially during Black History Month, bro, Bob. Now, okay, let's get started. I just want to announce something first of all.
I want to let them know that here in Australia, it's called February, not Black History Month. Just in case they want to know.
And so let's start with one thing about myself. I'm not white, just for you guys to know. Before you call me a racist. Patrick really is working with you, huh? You guys are doing some great work.
Thank you.
So I want everyone to know I am not white. I'm half white, by the way, but I'm not white. I want to make something clear before Sean Ray comes and says some racist BS. I am from the EM2Y haplogroup, Sean. You go to your 23andMe results and you find out if you're actually a descendant of a slave from your father's side like I am. Okay, because I am from the same sub-Saharan African group as you will be if you're pure from that, what you think you are. Number one. Number two, my father is as dark as you, or darker actually, specifically. So don't try to claim I'm some racist or something bullshit because you want to play games with the politics and all that bullshit. Third of all, I want to say something. I've been called the word sand N-word, which I can't even say the word because it's so faux pas, even though they're calling me it. I've been called that on the street in LA by a black guy while walking across the street, by a black guy no less. I've been called it in person by white people. I've been called it online hundreds and hundreds of times. In fact, I have to remove sand from my YouTube channel. It's a banned word, sand. So whenever I write sand, it goes away. So I experience what you would call racism, Sean Ray. And moreover, jobs, when I apply, my Arabic name, Leo is my nickname. My Arabic name is Arab. It immediately turns off people whenever I apply anywhere. When I apply family functions, my white side is somewhat racist against me. Somewhat, they don't say stuff, but he's a terrorist, so they go a bit further away. There's racist profiling at the airports by far. Oh, every time I go to the airport, I have to have every single thing checked every single time, no matter what. And it's always random. I'm in a queue of 100 people. They're all white. I just get picked up. Sure. I don't complain, by the way. But anyway, racist profiling in shops, maybe due to my tattoos. I get followed around. Sometimes they think I'm going to rob them. It's happened. Cars all the time with police. Police pull me over all the time, no matter what car. Porsche 911 Turbo S, Prius right now, whatever I'm in, they pull me over.
I told that story. I told that story too because
of you in Compton driving a nice car.
Yeah, because they told me that white guys in that neighborhood are either selling drugs or buying drugs, and that happened to me 3 times when I was down in that neighborhood. So it does go both ways, like you said.
Exactly. Well, I'm only saying all of this not to say anything else except that, hey, I'm not a white guy, so please don't attack me based on that principle. Okay? So next I wanted to say, I don't think there is systemic racism in America, like the way that people talk about. In fact, in my experience living all around the world, the least racist countries I've ever been to are in Western Europe and America. Specifically, the Western European nations are the least racist I've ever been to, and the second least racist was the United States of America. You go to China, you go to the Middle East, and it's actual racism. They will tell you in your face that they don't like you because you're black. It's very different. They don't want to engage with you. We live in a different world here, a really wonderful world. I'd like to
I think the media the last few years is what's stirring up this whole systemic racism and stuff. And even when you go back to when, they throw the slave things out there, right now it's like, 2021. If you look at some, go back and look at 2020 and stuff like that, you have places like India. They still have over 8 million slaves, and Pakistan and Nigeria.
There's slavery in Libya. There's slavery in Libya. In India,
China.
In India
still has over 3 million and stuff like that.
Forget about that, Lee. Let's talk about India specifically. The Dalit class in India. There are the class of people called untouchables. They are treated still till today, despite the Indian government's best efforts, they're treated as a subhuman class a lot in the society, separated. There is true racism around the world. So, Sean, when you come and belittle racism, you make it a joke. You make a joke of people's real suffering, and this upsets me. And the fun thing, I just want to say, I do not believe that Lee Priest is a racist. Lee makes clearly off-color jokes all the time. In fact, to be honest with you, I would think that his gender jokes are worse than the race jokes, personally. If anything. If anything, to be honest with you. And all you are is somebody who makes jokes like all of us did 20 years ago, except you're not a coward. And you didn't stop saying them. Everyone else became a coward, and they pretend they never said any of the jokes that we used to make. We used to make jokes not to hurt each other's feelings. We used to make jokes to laugh. If we laugh, it's a funny joke. It's
and
not.
That's the thing to remember. Remember when you could laugh, and it didn't matter if you had a Italian friend or a black friend or a Mexican friend or whatever. You'd make fun of each other, and you'd laugh because that's all it was. You're making fun of either the way you were, the stereotypes that were funny. Because everyone, look, as much as people hate it, everyone race has a stereotype. That's why there's stereotypes, whether it's a white, blonde, Asian drivers or whatever it is. Everyone has a stereotype, and it's funny. And generally, you got a stereotype because it's true. Majority of things are that way. It's like every bodybuilder walks like this and takes steroids and blah, blah, blah. But then it's like people just get so upset. But people like Sean that go on about this racism and then they go back to slavery. What's he doing right now that you actually said when it comes to real slavery that's still going on in the world? How is he putting his energy towards that?
We'll talk about Sean. We haven't even started about it.
When Sean's buying his Nikes right now and those Chinese kids in slave labor who are making about 20 cents an hour are making his Nike shoes, does he feel proud that he's wearing shoes made by child labor, slave labor and stuff like that? If he wants to go back to my ancestors were slaves, you're buying clothing and shoes that poor young kids are still getting probably $1.50, $2 a day making, Sean, and stuff like that. So
number one, what I was saying is a personal opinion. Personally, and I agree, if all of you disagree and the audience, I totally respect your opinion. But personally, having been, I am an Arab after 9/11, grew up after 9/11 in the US, horrible racism against me personally. I don't feel systemic racism in the US personally. But that's my personal opinion. I respect everyone else's opinion. The second thing is, I don't think Lee is genuinely a racist, and I genuinely mean that. I think the most suspect thing Lee has ever done was that bicep curl, not racism. If anything, I'm being honest. You guys know that my audience knows I'm a straight shooter. And the second thing I want to say is, what really happened here is exactly this. Sean Ray has a personal enmity toward Lee Priest for 2 decades. And Sean Ray is well known in the industry as a Machiavellian, manipulative, sneaky character who tries at any moment to destroy anyone, not even just enemies, just jealousy. He tried to destroy Dave for no reason. He would try to bury you a hole when you're turned around. And everybody in the whole industry says that about him. Everybody knows. And now he's just trying to use the opportunity of the BLM movement and the sensitivity in the political culture to destroy Lee. And we're not going to let that happen because we like Lee. So instead, let's try to destroy Sean. That's what I'd like to the audience.
I think Sean does a good job of that himself. But like I've always said too, Sean, a bodybuilder, great bodybuilder, one of the best in the world. But Sean as a person, then there's a different story. So when people say, why don't you like Sean and this and that, I say, look, as a bodybuilder, he was one of the greats. He could go down in the Hall of Fame as one of the greatest bodybuilders ever. But when he comes to a human being, as you said, is a total what he portrays.
Literally says Sean lacks moral character. That's the next point.
It's like, Sean is this, what I hate is two-faced people who try to act a certain way to fit in, who preach that, he goes on about family life and Christianity, but then he tries to fuck anything with a heartbeat as soon as he's out of the country or away from home. And I've got evidence of that. I've seen photos and shit, Mr. Ray. So, Dave would never give me the messages, but I brought up a topic once and I mentioned that, and this person started sending messages to Dave and goes, I didn't think it was real about what Lee said about Sean cheating. And this female sent all these text messages with photos of Mr. Ray, and this person's close.
What about Sasha? What about Sasha? Do you know Sasha?
Oh, that was the transsexual.
Yeah, anyway. We all know. But the point is, so look at this.
Hold on. I'm going catabolic. Carry on.
But the point is, Sean is known for lacking moral character. I mean, that's basically what you could say about him. My bullet points, I wrote some down. I just want to make sure that my points were consistent and logical. So number one, while he pretends to care for athletes, you know how he does this? Do you guys remember the audience, all the bodybuilding fans? How does he care for athletes? He digs a hole for Chad Nichols. He digs a hole for the coaches. Well, Lee also doesn't believe in coaches, but the approach is a little bit different. Do you see how Sean does it? Sean tries to harm. So he cares a lot about the athletes. He cares only when his pocket isn't involved. He's not making money from coaching. Sean is not a coach. Sean may be making money from supplements. He never talked about supplements. Sean is making money from what? He spent, since he finished bodybuilding, leeching off the IFBB everywhere he can, living off them, and he will never say one word against the Manion mob or anything else about the IFBB. He will never once say, hey guys, wait a minute, all the athletes are dying. Why don't we give them some kind of, what do they call that when you retire? Retirement benefits, something like that. Something a union. No, Sean doesn't care about the athletes, but when it comes to coaching, oh my God, Chad Nichols, you're killing everybody. It's all your fault. With the IFBB, no.
remember Sean tried to say, he got money for all the athletes at the Olympia, blah, blah, blah. But then it has it on tape where I'm at that meeting, the press conference. Look up the 2003 press conference where I hand that letter to Wayne DeMilia. And Wayne says, okay, from now on, we're going to pay all the athletes. I spoke to Kerry Caves. On the extended version, 20 minutes later, Bob and Sean come in and Sean's like, and what about money for the athletes? Wayne's like, I've already discussed that with Lee. It's already been taken care of, Sean. You should have been here earlier.
Exactly.
So it's like,
but that's how Sean is in general. Sean will never stand up to any.
Out for Sean.
Exactly. And he looks out for Sean in a way where, let's be honest, the value that Sean provides is exactly this. He listens to ESPN Live and he copies the way they speak exactly because he's a fan, I guess, of baseball or something. And then he tries to do it in bodybuilding with the voiceover stuff. The problem is Sean is so disliked that he couldn't even do that with Jake Wood, that Fuad had to make a video about him. The whole bodybuilding world turned against him. They made a petition to get him off the show because they hate him so much. And Jake Wood had to take him on a video and whip him in front of the whole audience. It was so embarrassing, Sean. We all saw you sitting there groveling because you want $5,000, $10,000 a month. Now, why I mentioned that, Sean, is is because you call Lee a washed up bodybuilder and a nobody. And I want to mention something important, and because he's bullying you, and wait a minute, Sean. Let's be clear. The least popular 90s top 5 competitor is who? Sean Ray. The least liked top 5 competitor in the top 10 is Sean Ray. Actually, let's say the least liked bodybuilder in history is Sean Ray. But the least successful top 5 guy is actually Sean Ray. It is actually Sean Ray. If you look at Kevin Levrone, everybody else is the top 10. Look at the top 10. I know you're in the 6th. Everybody in the top 10 is beloved. Even Paul Dillette is beloved, although he's not so active. He has this huge organization. Everyone's doing fine. Lee is beloved around the world. He's on Dave's show. He's on my show. He has so many fans. Sean, you have zero. So it's not a washed up bodybuilder.
I haven't competed in the IFBB since 2006. And I see people going, Lee's washed up, he's irrelevant. I said, well, that's funny because when I do podcasts and sometimes I see the views, the ones I'm on seem to get the most views. So for someone that's washed up, I seem to attract attention still, Mr. Sean Ray. It's like Sean Ray came out like a year ago. See, I make fun when he says stuff about me. Like a year or two ago, he goes, Lee's living on the streets. He's a drug user. He's living this. So I went out and filmed some big trash cans out behind the supermarket and said, this is my house, this big trash bin. And I'm moving into the new trash bin next door. And there was 2 shopping carts. One was red, one was blue. I said, they're my 2 vehicles. I never know which vehicle to take. So normally when he says stuff about me, I just play along with it because I generally don't see it because I don't follow him. Someone will bring it to my attention and go, look what Sean said about you this time. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's funny. Then I just let it go. And then when he goes on, I'm like, okay, I'll just come back. But as soon as I come back, Sean's like, Lee's attacking me and blah, 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 blah.
Well, let's get specific. So I noticed one thing about Sean. I mean, I never had a personal enmity toward him. And my issue was this as a fan. I love Dave Palumbo. I've been watching his channel since 2008. I've been messaging him since maybe 3 years. I've known him way before I started my own channel. And when I found out Sean was the reason that Dave lost his job, just like everybody else who loves Dave, I started hating Sean. And we all hate Sean because of that reason. Now we have another reason to hate Sean. We also hated Sean after Dallas's death because of what he said. I mean, it's just one after the other. Sean has no room in bodybuilding. Luke has to get rid of Sean because the Manion mob and all of this, we're going to start popularizing all of this. If Sean keeps making issues, I'm going to start making videos about all of these guys. I'm really upset with this fact that this Sean guy goes out and speaks and tries to cause commotion everywhere. Really, Sean. So be careful. We're behind you. And another thing I want to mention about Sean. I want to mention one thing about Sean. Every time I was listening to him in the last 5 years, the one thing that happened, he would just every time you'd see him on a video, he would be in a spa somewhere with like a pool and he was always be around a pool, and I'd be like,
Hawaii,
where is this guy living?
I mean Hawaii, somewhere by the beach somewhere. I'm over here. It's just wherever he's doing a little guest appearance or something like that.
Because he's so focused on projecting this image. This is a washed up. I'm a top guy. I'm a big shot. I'm in a pool. Dude, you're my neighbor in Irvine. I know where you live. You're in Irvine. You're not in some pool in Hawaii. That's where you go do your show. And you wear these big ass watches that cost $25. You don't make any money. You're a washed out bodybuilder. Let's be clear. Yeah. So that's all I want to say. I'm sorry, a bit harsh, guys. For the audience to know, I'm just protective of my friends. I don't like the way he used this opportunity to attack Lee. Lee just dislikes Sean, doesn't dislike black people, for God's sake.
And that's the thing, too. And that's the thing. It's like people, I'd say 98% of the people got it. I was being character. I was being Sean. I wasn't attacking the black race.
No.
I was being Sean. That's why I'm a bit upset with Dave when he did this last apology thing. I said, look, I'll never apologize because I never did nothing wrong. If someone says, Lee, you're racist or being racist, no, look, okay, if you see that and you go, shit, Lee's doing blackface, he's being racist. But once I come out and say, listen, no, I wasn't doing blackface. I was portraying Sean. I was being a character, had nothing to do with the race. Once I explain to you and tell you I wasn't being racist, that should be the end of the subject because, sometimes people can say something and someone takes it the wrong way. Then you tell them, they go, oh, shit, I took it the wrong way. Okay, but now you've explained it. I understand. That should be the end of it. It shouldn't have to go on and on and on and on.
It's going on and on because there's an instigator manipulating.
But it's like even like I said, I sent you that thing about now the guy has done 100 voices and he does the doctor on, The Simpsons and that. He's been fired from that job because he's a white guy doing a black voice on The Simpsons. But yet we have a female that does Bart's voice on The Simpsons. Why is it when it comes to different things, it's only if you portray the black culture or the black people, you're racist?
Well, actually, I was going to... Sorry, Lee. I was going to comment on this. This is an important point to bring up. I was going to comment about Phil Heath's comment about Black History Month, is that in the US, being Black, you're protected. It's not you're a minority. See, I'm an Arab American. I'm not protected. There is no Arab History Month in the US. There's no Jewish History Month. There's no was there Native Americans? There might be a Native American, but there's no Chinese, no Japanese. The point is,
there's no white history month, even though
there's certainly no white history. You have no right to be white, actually. You can't even say you're white. It's not acceptable. Every other group can be itself except that. Then you're not.
But even though, like I said, people go like, that's one of the main things people say about us is because they say, you don't know history because you talk about something. They go, well, you don't know history. You whites come here and did that and did that. Well, obviously, we don't have a white history then, because if we don't know what happened, you're saying we should know all this. It's like, because like you come here and stuff. But, it's like, even I was getting annoyed sometimes when, to me, I don't care what job it is, what sport it is. And when affirmative action come out, or they said we need so many minorities.
We're not
people.
Pro for that. Yeah, we're pro for equality, not protection.
And it's like, look, I just want the best person doing the job, whether it be a doctor, a lawyer, a bus driver, whoever it is, whoever's most qualified, I want for that job. But isn't it funny? That's only in certain jobs. In like somewhere like the NBA, 81% is Black people. Now, if I said, listen, that's way too many Black people, we need some more white people in it.
It's as if I sent you. It's as if I sent you my notes. You're saying this literally.
It's true. It's like
it's
like people in America don't care if the whole team's Black. They just want the team to win. They want the best players there. And imagine if the NBA said, "Wait a minute, we've got 81% Black. We've got to make it 60." And the other 20% white players, they put on a short like me, I can't fucking play, and the team starts losing. It's like, hey, it doesn't matter. We need diversity. So it's diverse. We've got to have a diverse team. It doesn't matter when it comes to sports. Look at NFL. Another one where it's over 75% Black people in the NFL playing. But yet, we don't talk about diversity there. We just want the best players. So when it comes to any job, I want the best workers, the most qualified. I don't want people thrown in there just because we need to get numbers up. It's like, it's ridiculous.
Literally what I wrote here is the truth is Black people are a protected class in the US. There is no Arab, no Chinese, no Japanese, no Jewish history months. Let's be realistic. Black culture dominates American culture and is accepted by all. It's in reality, in the West, Semitic people receive the most racism of all. The people who are actually attacked are Jews and Muslims. In the US recently, there was a bombing in a synagogue. There have been many Muslims attacked in Australia and New Zealand, as well. And those are the people you see attacked. It's commonly Muslims, Arabs, Semites, people like me, actually. And the people who are hated the most also, even. All the conspiracy theories, all about Jews, Zionists, and the hatred toward the Muslims and Arabs.
What about if we went back, say we go back, because,
I've actually never met someone who said they hate Black people in my whole life. I've actually never even heard it.
Well, I've always, even when I lived in America, yes, you're going to have racist people in all walks of life. But to me, it's like here in Australia, America, I discovered, because I traveled a lot doing seminars, this and that, over 98% of people, probably 99, there's a small 1% that are just hate everything, hate themselves probably. But the majority of Americans, Australians aren't racist. They want to get on with their life, go to work, feed their family. If their friends, Black, Asian, whatever, they don't care. They just want to get along and have a good life. But the way the media portrays it is all these things are going on. But the sad thing is, every time you hear about slavery, that's what they go back to, slavery, nearly every culture was slaves. If we go back...
Well, I just said myself, I am from EM2, so I am from the descendants of that. So I have complete right to speak as much as Sean does. As much as Sean does, and I'm not really interested in this stuff.
Well, if I go back to the English days, to the Christians and stuff, remember when...
There were slaves of all races, many races.
Yeah, remember like the Barbary coast slaves back in the day. There's like almost 3 million Christians, white Christians that were slaves back in the day. So who knows? I could be descendants of that. So it's like we all have got terrible pasts somewhere through history. People have done terrible things to different people. Yes, we should learn that and move on. I've always said we should learn about our past, never live in the past. Let's try, move forward.
Lee, I'd like to add some historical information about that so the audience knows that this is historically accurate. So what's the difference is this? In the Roman Empire, they used to enslave groups in general, but what they call barbarian groups. But they didn't just, now some people, African-American will listen to this and say, but there's a difference. Now you're enslaving people who lost in battle. You're not enslaving a race and that looks different. No, it was not actually the case. The Roman Empire did enslave races. There were, I'm forgetting the word right now, but if you guys watch that there was an amazing TV show that's called it's Sparta, I think, Spartacus, something like that. Anyway, you'll see.
I know there's another one. There's another one too. It was about
blood and something. It's an amazing one.
Yeah, there's one that had more to do with like the Ottoman Empire and stuff like that. And they had a lot of slavery back in the Ottoman Empire days.
So the Ottoman Empire used to enslave the Eastern, the Baltic people, Baltic people. The Egyptians used to enslave them also. That's how the Mamluk class came. The Romans used to enslave certain groups. So this has been happening throughout history. I'm not defending slavery, obviously. I'm a product of it myself. But I'm just saying, this is come on. He was just like Sean Ray. This is a bit ridiculous. We're all oversensitive. In fact, this leads us to our first question, which is not a question. A guy called Tattooed Muscle says, the world has become so sensitive that because I like Trump, I'm racist, LOL. He says, have people seen what I fucking look like? I'm one of the most illegal looking Mexicans around, but I'm racist, LOL. He said, Leo, pull up a pic of my racist self. He's Mexican and heavily tattooed, just like myself. Also like Trump, I'm also racist. I mean, true story. So the second one is Brad asked you about, he asked you already about Sasha. And then Cikla asked you, could you ask Lee about muscle atrophy? He says, I lost some right pec and triceps due to a neck injury and wondered if he had any luck with anything beside his second neck injury. He's currently trying neuromuscular electrical stimulation.
Well, I know about that because of that. When I had my crushed nerve, I had muscle atrophy on this tricep here in this chest, and that slowly, I feel like the triceps coming back a little bit since I had that last operation, and it sort of released the nerve a bit because that C7 nerve was crushed. There was just no signal going to the muscle, and it was hard to explain. I'd tell people it was almost like I never had a stroke, but it's almost like that feeling where I could grab the tricep handle and my mind's thinking push it down, but because the nerve's crushed, it just wouldn't work. It just wouldn't react and go down. I couldn't flex it for almost 5 years. I never had a pump in there. You'd go through the movement. I could move my arm like that, but the muscle itself wouldn't contract. If I flexed my arm or this part of the tricep here would still be just soft as anything. But slowly I can feel it starting to work again after that last operation. I just went and saw the doctor today and he had a look at the last x-ray and said it all looks good at the moment still. So
did you do that electric stuff though? Did any of that work?
No, I put that on there. I had like a TENS machine. So for like a year or two after the car crash, I'd put it on there just to sit it there because like I said, I couldn't flex it. So I figured, well, if I put the electric stimulant on there, at least it's contracting it a little bit more than I could naturally. So I did do that a little bit. Then after all, I'm like, nah, fuck it. Got the shits with that. But the main thing is too, so you don't get muscle atrophy, follow Patrick's diet and eat.
That's true.
Every couple of minutes.
I did do some research just because the question had this NEMS acronym that I didn't know about. And I came across some papers. It seems that when people have the kind of condition that you guys are describing, they use an electrical stimulation that is, it's not like when they use it like sort of all day. So they get they get that movement so they can reconfigure the nerve fibers so that they're feeling it. But you might want to check out the cerebrolysin from Cosmic Nootropic, which I've been using myself because it has nerve growth factor in it. It doesn't pass the blood-brain barrier that well, but I've seen for certain in myself changes in my nervous system from it and from SSRIs also, because I used to have nerve damage, serious nerve damage, really bad nerve damage.
I might get you to send me that info. Do you just buy that online or do you get it from
I have more ideas than just that.
Because I know nerves take forever to heal and regrow and stuff like that. It's like one of the slowest.
So I had severe nerve damage, and I healed it over a course of like 3 years. I can send you some messages about ideas of how to do it. Yeah, I have many ideas like nerve growth factors, SSRIs, lion's mane, other targets for NGF, which is nerve growth. Cerebrolysin, and so on. Nathan asked you something that I wanted to ask you also. So we're both heavily tattooed. So Nathan asked you, can you ask Lee in depth about the tattoo removal process he went through? How long it took? Basically, the reason why is he's having issues. So he says, how long it took, over how many sessions, what laser did he use? I'm in the process of getting my neck tattoo removed. I've had 7 sessions on it. In the space of a year and a half, it's hardly budging.
Well,
I don't know if you have color or not. Yeah.
Well, black's like one of the easiest to get rid of. But with mine on the face, it was like I had it put on, then it was really dark. So I went over it again, then I had more added to it. So it was pretty dark. But mine was about a year and a half, but I'm pretty sure the one they had is either the Pico Wave or the Pico Shore. It's the best laser there is, and you can pretty much go back after 4 or 5 weeks of getting it, and you can get another session. And sometimes, like here in Australia, I think at some places it could be like $300 a session. But the thing is, you need less sessions really for it to go, whereas someone could be like, well, 300 is expensive. I only pay 180 or 150. But if you've got to go 20, 50 times, it all adds up. So you want to, the Pico Shore or the Pico Wave is the best one. And
Heard of it
like
too.
I said, it pretty much removed all of mine pretty good. They said I can go back now because where it was, you can sort of see it faintly, which doesn't bother me because the laser takes some of the skin color out. So they do have another laser which can even up your pigmentation if you want. But I'm like, I had a dark tattoo there. Now it's just like a lighter one that doesn't really bother me. And this bit here, people always ask about near the eye and on the eyelid. To get rid of that, I'd have to go to another place where they numb your eye, and they have like a metal contact lens you got to put in. Because the laser, if I get this done, if the laser hits the eyelid, it will penetrate the eyelid and hit the eyeball. So I'm just like, I just put a bit of makeup on it.
Yeah.
Transgender, bit of makeup, bit of rouge and lipstick, and I'm good to go.
No, but it's not so. But I actually have one. Hey, let's give the audience some tattoo advice from because you didn't do this, and I even didn't do this because I'm a bit older than this younger generation. But these guys were getting neck and what we call it in tattooing when you get gloves and your scarf before you got your you don't go out on the cold without a shirt. So don't go get your hands and your neck done first. Try it out, see if you like tattooing, and every time you get tattooed, you'll learn a little bit more about tattooing. You'll learn the styles you like and the artists you like, so that when you do the most prominent pieces, you choose a piece that you like also. And this has nothing to do with Lee. I'm just talking generally. And also
my hands, my fingers were the last. So I think I'm trying to think. I actually think I had my face done before my neck. So I think
you were one of the first people, though. That was before face tattoos were popular.
Well, the thing was, because where I come from in Australia, we have a lot of New Zealand people come over, like the Maoris, and a lot of the Maoris just have the proper facial tattoos. So from a young age, I used to look at them and think they were cool. Before then, I used to love the old movies where the gangsters would have scars on their face, like a scar here or a scar down their eye. I'm thinking,
I always wanted a scar like that.
Yeah. I'm like, I should cut my face. And I'm like, that's pretty drastic. I better not. So then I like the face tattoos, and I always wanted one. I think those face tattoos look pretty good. And so I was living in America, forgot about it. And then when I was deciding, that's when Mike Tyson got his. I went, oh, well, if I get one now, people are going to be like, you're copying Tyson. So I waited a few more years and I thought, oh, bugger it, I'm going to go get it. So I went and got it. As soon as I got it, oh, you're copying Mike Tyson. I'm like, oh. So it was like, mine was a lot bigger. And like I said, I added to it. I went up here. I went over the eyelid here. And it's so funny. The eyelid part that I got across my eyelid and down here and into the corner, my friend Aaron was getting tattooed, and Aaron hates getting tattooed. And he's like,
Does he really? But he's not tattooed.
Yeah, I know, but he hates it. Like, I mean, worst ever. Like, Aaron, you're embarrassing me. Stop that. So the guy said to Aaron, go have a break. Lee, do you want anything? I said, well, I like this done over here. So he's like, sure, get down. So he does it. And I leave the room. And when I come back, I hear him talking. And the tattoo guy's like, Aaron, Lee's brave doing his eyelid and that. I'm like, why? Why am I brave? He goes, oh, you can go blind doing that. I said, you didn't fucking tell me I could have went blind. I said, it wasn't a matter of
I
being
didn't know
brave.
That was recent.
No, I said, it wasn't a matter of being brave. I said, if you had said, Lee, you can go blind, I might have said, oh, don't worry about it. Don't do it. I said, of course I didn't know. I'm like, yeah, go ahead. Do the eyelid.
Pretty irresponsible tattooer, to be honest. But I should make an announcement. In case anyone's listening to this and does have a laser shop in California, I have only one tattoo I want lasered. So if you guys will give me free laser like you did give Lee in Australia, or not free laser, but they give him free tattoos. So I'd like to get free laser. If anyone will offer, I would be very accepting. Okay.
I was actually lucky because the first time I went in to get it done, I paid, and then I went back in again and I got
for the laser?
The guy paid for it because I always pay. I don't expect anything for free. As I'm waiting, the doctor comes in. He's like, oh, you're Lee Priest, the guy that owns the place, Dr. Jake. And he's a really nice guy. He's like, I'm a big fan of yours, blah, blah, blah. So from that point on, he just gave me the free sessions. But also he's a general practitioner doctor too. Him and his father are also normal doctor. So he became my general GP and my laser doctor. So.
And he did a really good. I mean, I've rarely seen lasering that good. I mean, it's a really good job.
It's really good. He's got the best stuff there. So I was really happy with it. So.
Doug Sweeney asked something which I was curious about. He says, "What's your organ health like?" I know you don't know the answer to that, but I was curious. Do you have high cholesterol usually?
No, actually, I don't have them. I'd have to get them out, but I did find all my blood work, and I had my heart stress test done not long ago, and I took photos and sent to Dave probably 3 weeks ago, and Dave wrote back, "Fuck, you're in perfect health." So, because I don't understand a lot of those things, so Dave knows all that stuff because he goes over blood. So if I look at something and it says UHGL / I'm like, oh, here's the normal range, here's my range. So I just took photos of it all, sent it to Dave. I sent Dave my heart scans and how it said about the heart, the measurements and the thickness, and that Dave writes back and goes, "Oh, you're in perfect health." So I said, "Thank you." So yeah, I always try and get my bloods done twice a year, even when I was competing. And, because off season I'd get so heavy and eat shit food. I want to know what's happening. And then contest time, because I was using a bit more gear and stuff like that, I wanted to know what was happening. So I'd get my blood done every 6 months. And then pretty much every 12 months, I get the heart check, stress test and ECG and all that sort of stuff, or is it EKG, whatever. I get it all done just so.
By the way, if you ever do get a chance, you should try to get at least once a cardiac fMRI, because the EKG will just tell you the health of your heart organ.
I get the when I do the ultrasound.
You do an ultrasound.
Yeah, where they measure it and they do that. It comes up on the screen. Almost like they're looking for a baby. They got
they're looking to see if there's blockages. That's great. Okay,
yeah,
then you know.
Yeah, I get that done, and you can see it on the screen. Go.
That's all. That's almost all Dallas probably needed. They would have seen a huge blockage, and they could have just that's.
I watch it on the screen. Then they do it where it changes the color. Then it goes from the blue to the red. When the blood, they can make the color to see the little valve open up. I'm watching the valve in there go like this. But even notice though, I don't know why it is. I'm always fine. I go to the doctor, I get checked, even if they're just walking past, because he lives up near my mum. I call him and say, I say, "Oh, I'm here doing my blood pressure." So he does. For some reason, when I'm in the doctor's office and I sit down to get my blood pressure done, I'm almost like, it's like I start overthinking it. I can feel my heart racing.
It's called white coat syndrome. It's a real thing. Yeah.
I can be calm as anything. As soon as I get in there, I can feel my heart pacing. Like, I wasn't nervous before I come in, but now I'm thinking about it. I can feel my heart start to race.
I have the opposite problem. So my early 20s, I would go in and I would test my blood pressure would be 180 over 120, and the doctor would be like, "Oh, you have white coat syndrome." I was trying to explain, "No, I do not. I have a cough at home. It's 180, I promise." And the guys wouldn't prescribe me medication. So years would go by where I were like, "No, it's all right." Till I solved it myself, thank God. But old school is asking you something. I don't know if it's true. He says, "Why do so many Aussie bodybuilders use synthol?" Is that true? Is it common there?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Random question.
I never even knew of synthol until I came to it. Well, out of all the people I know to bodybuild here in Australia, I don't know any. I don't know. Unless if they do,
you don't see people with pokey delts.
No, or weird biceps.
No, you don't see that.
I don't see anyone with fucking calves, so they're not putting it in their calves. So
is that true? Although white people sometimes have very good calves, right? Asians and white people tend to.
Oh yes, I got
Arabs have higher calves.
I got a few Korean friends, and they got really good calves.
You must have very good calves, I assume, right?
Yeah, my calves are good, but my grandfather and mother had really good calves and stuff like that. So, it's funny. Like I said, some Asians I know have massive calves, shitty arms, but great calves.
My best friend is Korean. He has the best calves in the world. He has no muscle anywhere else.
Exactly.
And they're ready to walk.
Full ones too. It's like they go from the back of the knee all the way down to the ankle. Like
with long muscle, with all kinds of definition. Yeah, it's so true.
It's funny. He
always tells me, "I wish I had the same genetics elsewhere." Yeah.
But there's a couple that go to the gym like that. I watch him on the treadmill. I'm like, shit, he's got pretty good calves. But then the upper body's like they don't even train, but the calves are just naturally.
Exactly. Yeah. So Speedy Motor asks, he's a longtime follower. He asked a funny question, which is so true. He says, "Ask Lee if he agrees that Guru Amin Alai looks like the character Raymond in the 1988 film Rain Man, played by Dustin Hoffman." Did you see Rain Man?
You know, I
It's
didn't
true.
even-
It's true. No, I know
I
him
know
very
the
well. He does
movie,
look like him.
but-
He does. Yeah,
I
but not
didn't
in an
even know who
autistic
he
way. He
was
just looks like.
until- I don't even know who he was until a picture popped up of him not long ago wearing a patch or something. Was that him?
Yeah. Oh, you didn't know who he was? That's him. Yeah.
No, I didn't even know. I'd hear you talk about him, but I'd never
Really?
seen him before until a picture just popped up, and because somebody said to me, the guy that makes a lot of my cosplay stuff and makes like made my Bucky arm and all that sort of stuff. He goes, I should make Armin a patch, and I'm like, who's he talking about? And then I think on one of the YouTube channels that said his name in the patch, I said, oh, that's what he looks like. I didn't even know what he looked like. I'd hear you talk about him and have discussions about him, but I could never put a face to him. And then I saw him the other day.
I didn't know that.
Like, oh, yeah.
I assumed you knew him because of RX. So someone else also. Oh, that's also maybe it's someone else. They asked, has Lee ever been with an Aboriginal woman?
I think I have when I was young.
So
Yes, I
carefully.
have. I have. Yes, I have. Yes.
He's thinking
When I
so
was a-
carefully. There was a lot of thought going in there. What were you thinking? Were you thinking like there's shades of what was it?
No, because when I was younger, I was with a girl. When I was 18, she was Hispanic. She'd came across from America, so she was Hispanic. But then, when I was actually at school, there was a girl called Marie, and she was Aboriginal. Well, I'd say she had a little bit of white, but she was probably more on the 60, 70%. So you can tell she was Aboriginal. Yeah, whereas some people say I'm Aboriginal, or I've seen some people here that saying I'm Aboriginal, I want this and I want that, and they're pale.
Oh, you guys have that?
Red hair. Oh,
Like Elizabeth Warren?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. It's like they're more white than me. They probably got 2%, but they claim I'm Aboriginal. It's like, it's like,
Really?
okay.
I didn't know that.
so-
You know, the interesting thing about the Aboriginal people in
Well,
Australia.
sadly, they're the ones that cause most of the problems. If you talk to like Aboriginal people, they're lovely. They love their culture and they've got great stories, like all those stories from back in the day of, like mystic stories and stuff. They're great, but it's the ones who have like maybe 3%, 4% that we want this land. You come here and took our land and this happened here. And I said, well, they're actually doing an inquiry now because here in Australia last year, even one of the Aboriginal ministers wants to do an inquiry because $44 billion went into the Aboriginal people in a year, like for their schooling, for health, just to better their conditions. And yet there's nothing to show for it. She goes, now, if we were to give $44 billion to a company or any other type of business, you'd have to be accountable and show where that went. So why are these people still struggling, the ones that are, when we give you more than what the military got last year? We're talking billions of dollars and there's nothing to show for it. So I know that here's another thing Sean might not know, because for one, Sean, I was married to a South African girl who was Muslim.
Oh, wow.
Sean probably didn't know that. And she was coloured. She was coloured and she was proud because she would say she's coloured. People go, you can't say that, you're racist. She goes, no, I'm a coloured person and I'm proud to be a coloured person. And she was Muslim, so that blows people when people say Lee hates Muslims.
Double whammy.
And then my other wife in Australia, who was
Plus,
married
you're talking to a Muslim right now, so it's like really special. This is really difficult. I don't know if you guys can get Lee anymore.
I'm trying to control myself. But then my previous wife, little does Sean Ray know that the 3 children that I was raising, and the one of them still thinks I'm his father today, I raised for quite a few years. Those 3 kids were Aboriginal. So there you go, because their father was Aboriginal. So I guess Sean didn't know about that either when he wants to call me a racist. Mm-hmm. Actually, that's the thing too, because I know because the Aboriginals, this was the school they went to. I had to go to school a few times because there's meant to be an Aboriginal program at the schools where they do teach them Aboriginal history and they give them the culture and stuff like that. And we ended up getting the woman fired because all this money was given to the school to go towards Aboriginal studies and stuff like that. And they didn't do one program for the school in a couple of years. So she ended up getting fired. So God knows what she was doing with the money. So before Sean starts calling me racist, he should know a bit more about my history. Maybe if there was a Lee Priest History Month, Sean would know a little bit. So.
Hey, actually, that's an interesting story. So I just wanted to, since you brought up Sean again, I wasn't going to mention him again, but since you brought him up, I just wanted to say to Sean, since I know Sean will hear this, and maybe the audience can send him a clip of this, exactly what I'm about to say now to him, which is that, Fuad Abiad tried to threaten my friend Nick a while ago, and Fuad had so much headache because of it afterwards, so much. He tried to call me and beg me to stop and everything, and I told him none of it will happen. I screamed at him on the phone, told me he can't speak Arabic. It went very bad for him. I've let him go just because Fuad fixed this channel, right? But Sean, you can tell I'm a wild card. Nick couldn't control me. Nick tried. Nick is a nice guy. Fuad asked him to, he couldn't. The same thing is going to happen with Lee now. Lee is going to try to control me, and I'm going to just go off on Sean all the time. If, Sean, you ever bring up Lee again, and I just want to mention this clearly to you, Sean, you depend on the IFBB for your paycheck. I can put so much pressure on you just by annoying you that IFB will have to get rid of you at some point. Okay, so if you keep mentioning Lee, I swear to God, I'll make it my life mission every time to talk about you and bring up all the shit, the crap that you've done in your past, which everybody knows, all the immorality, all the lack of consistency, all the piece of crappiness that you are, and the lack of everything that you are. So, Sean, keep your mouth shut from now on. Otherwise, Jake Wood will get rid of you just like he, whipped you in front of us last time.
I just don't want you to think I'm not being serious or anything here, or people don't write in saying I'm being rude, but Patrick said I got to keep my calories up.
But I have a video on the banana in a little bit. Actually, it's coming out in 2 hours. Okay. So Eliha Milo says, what was Lee's relationship like with his mother, which I'm very interested in? Was she supportive of his career? Did he, which I assume so, did he find motivation and inspiration from her? How much influence did she have on him? I'm particularly curious because of you're such an unusual childhood.
My mother and I used to make mad, passionate love every night.
No, but what was it like when your father, things happened to your father? Like, how did she talk to you about it? How did you guys, did you end up close to one of them? Like more than
mainly, in the beginning, let's go back to the beginning. When my mother met my father, she had an inkling that he was gay and that, but then this was back in the day, they were both going to church and stuff like that. So they figured, hey, if we get married, the church can help. The church can change you, make you straight. So they got married. My sister was born, and then 2 years later, I was born. Things
I didn't know you had a
well.
sister. You have an older sister?
Mm-hmm.
No way. Wow.
Yeah, so she's like 2 years older than me. She'll be 50. Yeah, coming up to 50. So yeah,
48?
I'll be 49.
Wow. Okay, you really didn't take a lot of drugs. You didn't take a lot of drugs. That's crazy. Okay, that's proof. That's proof. Everybody knows that. That's crazy. I didn't know you were that old. Wow. Good job, Lee. Good job.
Thank you.
I'd like 49. To be there when I'm your age. Yeah, I'd love to be there when I'm your age. That's great. Good job. Anyways,
I've only got a year and a bit, and I'll be 50. So
incredible.
So then they separated. So mainly during the week, I'd live with mum. On weekends, I'd always see my dad and stuff like that. And then I was probably about 10 or 11 when my mother, because even when I was growing up, my dad, he's been with the same partner now, Greg. I just saw him 2 weeks ago when I was up north. They've been together.
Greg Doucette? No, it's not Greg Doucette.
God, imagine if that was my father's other half. He definitely couldn't. He wouldn't be able to deny testosterone injections then, would he? The real stuff.
I'm imagining Doucette screaming at you. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So
you were saying they separated you're saying your sister was born. You were born 2 years later.
Yeah, and we lived in the same town. It's just that when they separated, I probably lived 5-minute bike ride from my mum and dad, so I'd always see them both anyway. But I'd stay with my dad on the weekends, mother and that during the week, or my grandparents, because my grandparents' house was here. Straight across the road was my mum's house, and then we moved up the road a bit further. Then my dad was just probably 5 streets away. So yeah, I was about 10 when my mother told me, because even back then, because, when you're young, you'd have your mates come over from school, they'd spend the night, the sleepover. So to me, seeing my dad with a guy was just like, oh, that's his mate sleeping over. I didn't put 2 and 2 together. Oh, yeah. It wasn't until I got a rough linking. I came home early from school one day on a Friday, and I was staying at my dad's, so I let myself in. And this is the old days of videos, the VHS There was a pile of videos there. They must have been ready to go back to the store. I'm like, what's this video? I'm like, I still remember the name of it. This is how it impacted my brain. It was called Boys in the Sand. I'm like, surfing movie. This is about guys at the beach. I put
title of this video. It's the title of this video.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, Boys in the Sand. I still remember that. So I put it in the video player, and all of a sudden I'm like, I'm about 11. I think about 11 or 12 at this point, and I'm watching oral sex and up the butt on the beach. I'm like,
actually, porn can be really traumatizing for a child to see by accident. By the way,
so that's my excuse. So I'm watching it like, what sort of surfing movie is this? And the thing was, then I'm panicking because it wasn't, the VHS movies. It hadn't been rewound, so it was like in the middle, thinking, fuck, I wonder if they stopped it at a certain part. So I'm trying to go back to where it started.
Oh, my God.
Like, I don't want them to think I've been watching this. I've been trying to find the bit. So I put it back and always played nonchalant. But then my mum told me, and I'm like, it didn't even really bother me. I'm like, well, he's still my dad. It doesn't make a difference to me whether he's gay, straight, whatever. A couple of friends, they were like, your dad's a poof and blah, blah, blah. But my true friends didn't bother them either. So, yeah, I said he's been with Greg. Yeah, but he's been with Greg now probably 38 years they've been together. My dad, I'll send you a photo of him. I got a photo, actually. He's my dad's 80 and his partner's 60-something. I'll send you a photo, and my dad doesn't look 80. He probably looks like he's 65.
Wow. I have two questions. One is, so basically the way I'm understanding it is you grew up with a separated parents, basically. It wasn't original. Yeah. It just felt like you had a separated home. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is at school in Australia. I grew up around English people, not Australian as much, but English people, they're very tough in high school. They fight a lot. They're pretty rough compared to American high schools.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like that in Australia? And I would assume they'd really pick on you for your father being like
well, like I said, my true friends didn't care. You'd have the one or two. I've only got into one fight at school. Some kid called me out about he wanted to fight me. And I'm like, who is this kid? I don't even know him. It's like, well, priest, I want to fight you. I'm like, oh, fuck, okay. So we go into the toilets. Everyone shuts the gate behind us. I don't know what it was over. We locked the door behind us. Next thing, I'm just walking towards the wall. I remember he grabbed me in a headlock from behind, and I get out of it. I turned around, punched him in the mouth. I knocked his tooth out, and that was the end of the fight. He's like, stop. So,
That's nice.
But at school, I was one of those kids at school where I was the class clown at school. If the teacher said one more word out of you, I'd say something funny just to get a laugh and get kicked out of class. Or I'd be like, I got to the point where the teachers hated me that much. I said, this year, what I'm going to do? I'm going to make them even hate me more. Beginning of the year, I went up to the office and I brought the school blazer, like the jumper, the tie, the shoes, everything. So I would come to school dressed like a preppy, the whole tie, the whole uniform. And the teachers are like, what the hell is Lee doing?
To shock them and being a good guy?
I'd come full uniform. To school.
So you weren't like treated badly basically because of your father at all, generally, huh?
No.
Interesting.
No. And that's the thing. Like I said, I'd met, because my dad would have dinners and all his gay friends would come over and stuff like that. And they were probably some of the nicest people. And my cousin,
of course, yeah.
People don't realize that I used to ride horses, and I actually won ribbons riding horses back in the day. But my cousin was a champion horse rider. That's how I got into it. But my cousin ended up being a transsexual. So I've had a lot of different people in my family from whatever to whatever. So
I know of all people for them to call racist, by the way,
race, religion.
Exactly.
It's like
ridiculous. I mean, it's
and Chris, my cousin, who was a transsexual, he was more like a brother to me, because when I lived with my grandparents, he lived with my grandparents too. He had like a little unit flat down the backyard he lived in, so I'd always hang out with him and see him. So he was like a brother. Sadly, though, he had a lover in Sydney who got on the drugs and stuff, and his lover could never give himself the heroin or whatever it was they took back then. So Chris would always have to give him his drugs, and sadly, they got a bad dose. He gave it to his lover. His lover died, and Chris never forgave himself. So my cousin ended up taking his own life because he never got over it. So
I'm so sorry to hear that. That's horrific.
Yeah, so
I've lost also many family
members.
But it was
not a champion.
Many family.
Yeah, he had like a room for just ribbons. He was such
poor man.
Yeah, he was a champion horse rider, and like I said, he was one of those guys. Everyone loved him. And then, like I said, my grandparents I pretty much learned how to treat people from my grandparents because my grandfather would give you the shirt of his back. I used to go to the grocery store with my grandfather, would walk home, and sometimes by the time we got home, say we had 5 bags of groceries. By the time we got home, we had one because as we're walking up the road, I was, hey, Shirley in here. She'd get talking to Shirley. How you doing, Shirley? Well, I'm a bit down. My grandfather, here you go, take this. We get home to my grandmother's like, Owen, have you got this and got that? He's like, no, I gave it to the people down the road. They needed whatever. So he's always that way. The key was in the front door. Like the house was open to anybody. They'll take anybody in. When my cousin ended up taking his life and had the funeral, we had so many transgender people and that come to the funeral, and my grandmother loved them all. She kept in contact with them up until the time she died and stuff like that.
Can I ask you, how did Chris end up at your grandparents' home? What happened to his parents?
They were still around. They were still around. Like my uncle, my mother's brother, Robert. Chris was his son. He just lived up north a bit. So my grandparents lived in like the town we all grew up in. So, and they had, like I said, they had like a detached unit down the back of their yard. So it was just more convenient for him to be there. It was closer to the horses. The people that lived over the fence owned the big paddock area where the horses were kept. So he just pretty much lived there.
Actually, that's a subject that not many people talk about, which is the really difficult circumstances in the gay and transsexual community with drugs. There's a horrible, drug epidemic, especially in LA. It's visible. People die all the time, and gay and transsexual people have more suicides, more drug problems, and all. They suffer a lot, a tremendous amount for their, the difficult.
Well, sadly, I talked to some of his friends, and a lot of them that actually got onto the drugs, and that were because, for one, they're too scared to come out. Because just say you come up in a family where, say you're a young kid and you finally get to that point in your life where you know you're different, you're either transgender or you're gay, but you've got one of these fathers who's like, I hate faggots, faggots should die, there's this, that. So you're this guy's son and you're hearing that, so you're too scared to come out and stuff like that. So that sort of leads them down that path of, absolutely, I'm not good enough. I can't tell my father. If I tell my father, he's going to disown me and stuff like that. So then they generally might move out of the house, go somewhere like another boarding house or with a group of friends who some of them might already be on drugs. Then they just fall into that cycle of taking drugs to cover the pain of whatever pain they're having from the family or just life in general. So
that's what makes people realize is that people, not everybody trying to use a drug is trying to get high. Some of them are trying to not feel pain.
Yeah. It's like a lot of people I know who are into alcohol. They use the alcohol to hide the pain and that, but then, sadly when the pain wears off and stuff, I know, I don't talk about it much, but in my last video I did with Generation 9, that time when my wife's on there and she was sort of upset and crying, people like, well, what was your wife upset about? And she said, you helped you through that. It's like, there's only a year ago, her father finally got sentenced to 36 years because her mum and dad separated. I've seen photos of when they were together. They traveled the world together. I loved their mum and dad. Like almost just 3 years ago now when we got together, they'd been separated. Her father come down 2 a.m. in the morning, shot her mother and killed her mother. So,
oh my God.
So we had to go through all that sort of thing. And sadly, like her sister is sort of on drugs, as her sister was there holding her mother when she got shot the last time. And my wife, sometimes drinks a bit to hide the pain from that sort of thing still now. So it's like, it's one of those things where, they try to disguise the pain. If I'm not home, sometimes I had to go to Sydney the other day. And when I'm not here, sometimes she gets upset by it because her mind just thinks about different stuff like that. I say when I went to the sentencing and that the court read out her impact statement and just hearing what my wife wrote about her mother in the last minutes and stuff like that, like the judge was crying and stuff like this. It's like terrible. So there's more things Sean doesn't know about me that, so
leave that idiot for a second. This is a really meaningful discussion. Can I ask you just briefly, did you say that they separated for 35 years? Then he reappeared and
they've been together all the time.
Oh, they were there the whole time.
Separated for 35 years. Yeah. Yeah, wow. They just sort of separated in the end and sort of moved apart. And she was just at home. My wife had just moved out of her place and got her own little place, like a little unit where I'd go see her. So she was living there. Her sister was still living at home with her mother. And just like 2 a.m. one morning, he just came down and shot her. So, yeah. But he just got sent. And, he's been in there. He was in jail for a couple of years, but then he got his 36-year sentence last year because I went down to the hearing there, and that's the first time she'd seen him since then. And it's hard for her too now because you're in that situation where this is your father, you love him, they traveled the world together. I've seen photos of how in love they were. So you're torn between, okay, this is somebody you've loved all your life, but now it's also the same person that's destroyed the family. So it's like this.
I don't know. I wouldn't know what to do. I mean, you just break down inside. That's a really difficult circumstance. I'm sorry.
I know. That's just bad day. That's why I make this. She loves now where we live now. Down the back of mother's name was Molly. So down the back, I built this beautiful area where it's like all flowers and stuff, and a nice area to sit. And I put up a nice big sign with Molly's place and put glass butterflies on it because she loved butterflies, and that's normally every day she just goes, sits down there and stuff like that. So
I don't know if I ever told you this, Lee, but I used to be an alcoholic myself, and I really bad alcohol, addicted to alcohol with severe withdrawals. I managed to get off it after a lot of that's how I got into this brain stuff. It's mainly that. My father was also an alcoholic his whole life and my whole childhood, and my mother's a drug addict. So I have a lot of experience with this kind of stuff. If ever you need any kind of tips or any kind of things to help at all in any kind of way, I'm always there. And also, by the way, similar things happened. Like my uncle died of drug overdose, and my aunt shot herself in the head. So from this thing also. Similar life is real. Not to go complain about, this guy's wearing a mask on his face. For God's sake, life is real. There are real things happen.
Exactly, and I think
piece of crap.
And I think that's too why. I think that's too why. Like I said, because I said I've had the transgender, whatever. I've had this, that happen. I've had all different things in my life. That's why, in a certain terms, I like to make people laugh, because life, if you look at it, it can be such a wonderful thing, but also there's also such tragedy and pain in life that I like to make light of things and stuff. Never in a way that's going to be hurtful. I've never.
That's probably how you became the class clown when you were younger, because you needed to make people laugh because you felt uncomfortable. I think that's probably why.
Exactly, and it's funny too. I'm sure it's probably some reason, because too, when you really look at it, even like look at someone. I'm not saying like I'm a comedian, but when you look back at some of these comedians like Robin Williams, and
you are a comedian. Everybody says it. You're one of the best.
And when you look back in their lives, some of these comedians like Robin Williams have some of these hurtful things in their life, and they use comedy, or they like making other people laugh to either hide their pain or suppress that. But then it's those moments when those people are alone by themselves and their brain starts to overthink.
Let's give a little psychology for the audience, the honest truth. You don't have to comment. But most people who have a lot of tattoos are people who have a lot of emotional trauma. That's just true. Most people who are class clowns or comedians have a lot of sadness in their hearts. It's very well known among comedians, high rates of depression. The truth is, all of this comes from a good place. You're trying to make the good out of, whatever exists.
I didn't know if I had a lot of depression. I said I just like making people happy, because my grandfather, he was always, like I said, my grandfather sort of, once my mum and dad separated, my grandfather pretty much was like my father. And my grandfather, I remember getting mad at him sometimes when I'm dieting, because my grandfather, I could honestly say my whole life, never saw him angry, loved everyone and would help everyone. He would get up in the morning and come out, it's a lovely day, dancing around all smiling. And I'd be dieting and I'd be like, can you just shut the fuck up? And I'm like, oh shit, I'm talking to my grandfather like that. He'd look at me like, but I said, never had. Well, let's put it this way. Pick someone in history that's terrible. Like someone like Adolf Hitler. Let's look at what Hitler did and the atrocities Hitler did. If I said to my grandfather, Adolf Hitler should be put to death, he's a terrible person, my grandfather would say, now, Lee, wait a minute. Yes, what he's done is terrible, but he'd somewhere go back.
That much of a patient person. And
he'll go back through Hitler's life somewhere and find the one good thing he did and be like, well, but in the beginning, he was a good person. Look what he did here and did there. It's like he would always find, no matter how terrible you are, you could be on. It
was a bad example for the racist discussion, but anyway.
I know, but I could have went to Stalin or someone.
Yeah, you should have done Stalin. Yeah.
Well, Stalin killed more than Hitler, but but no matter whoever I brought up, I could bring up a serial killer, Jeffrey Dahmer. He'd probably find the good somewhere in Jeffrey Dahmer. He'd be like, well, maybe something traumatic happened in his life when he was young. He was just that type of person. He didn't have a bad word to say about anyone. He could accept and see what bad people had done, but he would never really be that type of person to even, well, put it this way. If I told my grandfather about Sean Ray, he would find the good in Sean. That's how good my grandfather is.
Hey, can I ask you something, Lee, on an honest note? Because you competed with Sean. Does Sean actually have I mean this just genuinely. Tell me the truth. Don't make it up just for the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Does Sean have any friends? Because I've never seen anyone.
I think from what I've experienced backstage at contests, at the expos, and then when I know the people who say they're Sean's friends, they're almost, that's why when I saw the post someone sent me when I seen Sean's name and Bob's name, the same people that say they're friends behind their back talk shit about them. So to me, they're not friends. I'm the type of person where I'm going to be open. I'm going to be myself. If you like me, you like me. I don't like these people that are like, hi, Lee, how you going? Let's just say you're talking to me now and you're like, hi, Lee, how you going? And I'm like, hey, Lee, how you going? Great.
Bob Chick? Yeah, Bob Chick. Exactly.
Well, yeah, but let's just say we're talking like, let's just say you and I are talking like this. But then when we get off here, you get on the call to somebody else and you're having a phone call. You're like, yeah, I was just talking to Lee Priest. And that person goes, oh, he's a fucking asshole. And you go, yeah, he's a fucking dickhead. I hate him. I don't like people like that. It's like, look, it's like if I like you and then someone spoke bad about you, I'd be like, look, well, I'm sorry you feel that way, but Leo's my friend. You know, what you have going with him, if you don't like him, that's on you. But I'm not going to talk bad about you just to fit in with this person.
This just happened to me last week. It really annoys me. I would never do that. I don't talk about if I talk behind someone's back, then it's got to be in front of their face. I would never. That's a cowardly move, you know. But the kind of guys are probably like that. I just
don't like. But they are. It's like they're nice to Sean's face, but then they're talking shit about behind his back. It's like the same ones that I see talking to Bob and saying things to Bob are the same ones when Bob's not there. Oh, that Bob's a dickhead. I can't stand him. I'm like, but you're like, yeah. It's like, I wouldn't want friends like that. You can't trust people or friends like that because they're not your true friends. They're just people that want to fit into certain groups, and whatever that group's talking about at that time, they'll join in on the conversation and bash whoever just to fit in with that group. So,
hey, while we're on the topic of Bob, I mentioned something with Nick Trigili before, but I'd like to mention here in case we have another audience that hasn't heard what I said before. I was stunned that Bob has his job because Bob is a person that literally, like, it's as if, imagine, I don't know how to lay tile, but imagine you hire me and tell me I want you to lay the tile in my apartment. I tell you, I can't lay the tile. You say, just do it. I'm not going to lay a good tile. Bob is a guy who can't speak. They hired him to speak as the MC of the thing. He cannot speak. He does not speak words well. Lee, you don't have to comment because I know maybe you and Bob are friends.
Thank you and welcome to the world of bodybuilding.
Literally speaks English like a fifth language. Can't speak any other language and IQ below 90 for sure. You can't hire that guy to represent the Bodybuilding Federation. Anyway, as you guys can see, Bob and Sean and everything, if you guys want to hate on Lee, the world is not what it used to be before. The IFBB doesn't rule everything, and we can really.
Someone just sent me a link the other day. They said, "Oh, here's your mate Bob and Sean." You know how they do that show, whatever it is, where it's meant to look like ESPN, the desk and that.
Nobody's ever seen that show, so I don't know.
I know exactly. I don't think many have, but I'd never seen it. But they're talking to Sean Clarita, but then Bob starts calling Sean Clarita by a different name, and Sean's like,
"Are you serious?
Bob, that's such and such." And then Sean's like, we better go to commercial break. Bob, that's not such and such. And Bob's like, meh.
Like, Sean did that before. Didn't Sean do that at the last bodybuilding show? He didn't know the name of the amazing.
This time Bob's talking to Sean Clarita and he calls him a different name. And then I'm like, really?
But Sean won the 212. Anyway, that's not the important thing. The important thing is Bob really can't speak, and Sean's a piece of crap. And Bob is also a piece of crap trying to ruin Dave Palumbo's Joe Rogan thing, which I don't know if it happened or not. Dave is just such a nice guy, he took it away. But we all know what happened, Bob. So you're a piece of crap, and Sean is a piece of crap, and we all know that.
Well, Bob's never liked me too, because he tried to say he helped me get back into the IFBB, which in the beginning he sort of did, because he goes, Lee, if you don't do the PDI show, they'll let you back in. But I said, Bob, I've signed the contracts to do them. People expecting me to go to England to do them. And my exact words to Bob were, because they said if I didn't go to England, I wouldn't have to get the 2 years suspension that I got. I said, look, I've signed on to do it. People in England have brought tickets. They're expecting to see me. And my exact words to him were, tell Mr. Mannion, thank you, but I can't accept it. I've signed on to do this contest overseas. I got to go do it. I'll just take the 2 years suspension, which I did. I took the 2 years suspension, and then that's when John and I started the other show. Then my 2 year suspension turned into a full lifetime ban, which then Bob says, and Bob's done interviews about it, talking about my lifetime ban. But then not long ago, he's saying, Lee never had a lifetime ban. I'm like, Are we in parallel fucking universes here,
Wait,
Bob?
can I bring something up to the fans? Do you see how Lee has to say Mr. Mannion as if he's talking? You don't even have to say Mr. Trump, but you guys have to say Mr. Mannion. See, I'm not a bodybuilder, so I can comment. This is a little ridiculous. Can I say that?
Well, I normally just say it out of respect if I'm talking about someone.
Out of respect for who? He's not a bodybuilder. He didn't do anything.
I know, but
how did this guy get in his position? He wasn't elected.
But I've just always been brought up that way. And that's the thing too. I've never said nothing bad about Mannion or anybody else. It's like when my problem with the sport was the IFBB in general, how the IFBB treated the athletes. It was never with a singular person. When people say this and that and try and come down on me, it was always.
Well, that's because you're a bodybuilder and you're within the sport, but I'm an outsider, and I'm saying I'm not. You're not controlling my words. I'm saying that it's a little bit of a weird sport where you have two guys, 3 generations of a family owning the company that were never elected, that are not the leaders. I don't know how they own it. They don't pay anyone anything. They pay Sean Ray and Bob to run things. Sean Ray and Bob suck. Yeah. And Sean Ray has got more attention now to the crap that the Mannions are doing. So Sean, stop doing this crap that you're doing.
Well, I remember when I was engaged to Adela Garcia, who won the Olympia 6 times or so at the Fitness Olympia and stuff like that. She was under contract with Jim Mannion's son, JM, and JM owned Fitness Divas or whatever. They also had like a porn site which he had under a different name, which had a lot of fitness girls naked. But
JM is yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like, well, Monica Brandt, she wins the Olympia.
He's the weird
Mannion
one.
Wants to sign. Monica Brandt won the Olympia thing. Mannion wanted to sign her. She said no. Did Monica ever win again? No. But when Adela was with him, I'd hear the phone calls and she'd get off the phone crying, and I'd say to Adela, why are you with him? Well, if I don't re-sign with him, I'll never place high again. There used to be a girl called Teresa Hessler. She was with JM. Yeah, because he gets a percentage of all their appearances.
This is the truth. Yeah, this is what Sean Ray stands for, by the way. That's what Sean Ray stands for.
That's what got me. It's like, is this a conflict of interest? You got Jim Mannion that runs it, and your son has all these girls under contract. When they place well or get appearances, your son's getting a percentage of their contracts, their winnings,
Can I tell you something funny? Lee Priest, I grew up in Dubai where there are princes, right? And I never seen an American prince. Then I saw the Mannion grandson. I never seen these IFBB pros go and kiss. They want to kiss his head. He's like Rami did at the Olympia. He's 21 years old, I think. You go up to this guy. Oh, thank you so much. Oh, thank you. You guys have no self-respect. And the worst one is Sean Ray. It's the worst one.
I remember when Jim Mannion used to come to town before the Ironman Pro Show and that, and Paul Dillette was living with me. I said, where are you off to? He goes, we're going over to show Jim Mannion how we're looking and stuff like that. He goes, you want to come? I said, no. I said, not being rude. I said, Jim was seeing me today at a fucking show. I said, I don't need to go pose for Jim beforehand. And then if it was his birthday, I remember Craig Titus once brought him a watch for his birthday. And then it was like, he'd had that Pittsburgh Pro Show and he'd have like 6 guest posers there because Adela had to go guest pose once. And I said, I'm going. I forget who asked me. It was either Paul or Melvin said, are you going to guest pose for Jim while you're there? I said, what's he pay? They're like, oh, no, we don't charge him. We do it for free. It's like, because we do it for free, we're getting the first couple of call-outs at the Olympia. That's why you'd have the Pittsburgh Pro Show. You'd have Kevin Leverone guest posing, Paul Dillette guest posing. Like 6 of the top Olympia guys would be guest posing for free because it was Jim Mannion. I'm like, look, I don't play those games. It's like, if I'm good enough to win or place high, I want it on my merits, not because I kiss someone's ass. I was never disrespectful, but yet I didn't play that kissy thing. It's like I said, I'm just me. I'm going to be me.
Yeah.
I'm just, that's the way I was.
Let me point something out. Lee, I don't know if you saw the video I made last week. I brought on a couple of ladies that were molested sort of by a man who works for the IFBB, works for them. His main job is a cameraman for them. Actually, his job is a steroid dealer, but he's also a cameraman for them. That's the truth. That's the truth. Anyway, he's been molesting women right and left. I mean, I spoke to him on the phone for an hour. He's the weirdest creep on earth. This guy is, it's true, all true. I talked to him, so I know it's true. He wouldn't admit it, but I know it's true. Anyway, the point is, I sent word to Mannion, the top Mannion. They know all about it. They told me I can make the video. They didn't fire him from his camera job. I would have never spoken about it, but Sean Ray, you did this. So let me point that out to you, Sean Ray. Do some more crap, and I'm going to cause some more commotion for your Mannions that let people go get molested, and you go stand for them and get the money from them, and you never talk about anything, except then you talk about who? Chad Nichols. Why, of all people, I mean, for God's sake.
Well, I never understood too when we were members. Like I said, I'm not sure what it is now, but every year every pro's got to pay to be a member. You got to pay for your pro card every year. And it's like, okay, if we're paying members, like you said, why do we not get the vote on who gets to be the head of this or the head of that?
It's a mafia. It's called the Manion mob. It's called.
But that's why I like it when they always say the Prez. And I did see a few people posting because I think it was his birthday a week or two ago, and I was just laughing because on my Instagram feed on some of the people I follow, happy birthday to the Prez, happy birthday to the Prez. I'm like,
the God's birthday.
Like, it's Donald Trump's birthday. They're talking about the president. What the hell's going on?
Exactly. So these are the kind of people you're talking with that stand up for ethics and all that. They're just people that all want the buck at the end of the day, and they're all so anyway.
Well, that's the thing too. Like I said, I've never said in my whole bodybuilding career, I've never sold out. I've never kissed ass. I've been with companies.
Well, except the bicep curl. I'm still suspicious about the bicep curl. We'll talk about it next time.
That was fake anyway. It says it on there.
We have to talk
fake.
about it. Exactly. Yeah.
Because I said to people, you didn't see the video like 2 weeks before where I'm curling it on a straight bar.
I think you were trying to get attention, not trying to fake it, but you were trying to get a lot of attention suddenly.
No, the reason I was doing not to get attention, it was just that there were so many videos going up about strict curl. Like, this is fucking boring. Who gives a shit about strict curls? Oh, you were making
fun the way you wear I got you. Now I know you better. I understand it. Oh, okay. Now I understand you. Yeah.
Like they're like Nick Strength and Power every week was doing strict curl. And everyone's like, oh, this is great. I said, you know what? I'm going to fuck with him. I'm just going to
actually, we were talking about it on the podcast too, Nick Trigili and I, how everyone's talking about curls all of a sudden. That's true. All right, Lee, listen. So
I just jumped on board.
I think we cleared things up pretty well, and I think we sent.
Patrick told me to be anabolic. I gotta have some chocolate.
So remember, Sean, get back in your place, or you'll be whipped again by Luke or Manion or JM Manion or the other Manions, or maybe the Manions will have problems or whatever. So shut up next time. And Lee is not a racist.
I've been eating. Look, I didn't even have this set to go. Look. I even had a shot lined up. I was going to have a shot.
That looks like Tremboloni, which is actually what you're taking now. I noticed. It's in an insulin needle. It's actually 0.5 ml of Sus 250 or so. It says on the bottle. Yellow.
I know.
Yellow.
Hey,
that's the worst.
I don't know how old it is.
That's the worst.
But for comic effect, I was going to take it. I could have ended up with an infection, but I was going to take it just for comic effect.
Hey, did you notice? Look, Lee, when we're done, go back, watch the last one, and don't watch it. Just fast forward and watch that guy's mouth. He's like, angry the whole thing. God, the trend is just killing him. He's so uncomfortable. Anyway, that's what Patrick's secret is. But we'll let you go. Have a great day. And will you come back for a real interview?
Definitely. I like real interviews because, excuse me eating, but this is what you do on podcasts now. Hold on. I'll just wash it. I'll just wash my chocolate down with the zero sugar drink. All about mixing zero sugar with sugar, as you'll know. And my Diet Right water drink because I got to have water to flush my kidneys.
Yeah, that's the I think he's drinking cranberry juice. Yeah.
Patrick's got me on the protocol.
All right.
Well, but yes, I'd love to come on and do a proper interview. And yes, because I'm very open. And like I said, if you want to do a proper interview, ask me anything you want.
And also, I need somebody to comment on bodybuilding when I do for my bodybuilding and biohacking one. So I'm just going to, I think me and you talk enough for us to just be two people. We can interrupt each other.
Yeah, like I said, it's like sometimes too, people don't understand this goes quiet because sometimes, I'm on the other side of the world, even though they can talk to people on the moon very clearly back in the 70s. For some reason, even America and Australia still gets this delay. So sometimes Leo goes quiet, then I go, yeah, and then all of a sudden they hear Leo's voice. Exactly. So then Leo hears my voice, he stops, and then I stop, then he starts, and I start. So Sometimes it's not like we're interrupting. It's just sometimes there's this little delay where it goes quiet, and I'm like, oh, it's finished, and I start up. Which
won't always be the case. If the channel continues, one day I'm going to build a studio, I'm going to fly people in, and it'll change one day in a couple of years, hopefully.
You got to get one of these, the golden mic.
I have a little fake mic over there too. All right, we'll talk soon, Lee.
Testing. Is this thing on? Hello.
Have a good night and say hi to your wife for me.